Okay, just on a logistics basis, we're going to meet again next week. The following week, we're off because there's no religious school, and we don't want to pay security just to come in for a 1 hour pop, and because they charge you for 4 hours, whether or not you have 4 hours. What? You can't hear me? Okay. Yeah. Shechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Yeah, there we go. All right. I'm just going to give people a chance. Okay. So I'm going to stand here. As you come in, Gail has some extras here. I've been told I need to stay anchored to the mic. So that's what I'm going to do. All right, we're back for lesson 3. Last week we talked pretty much about the expulsion itself, and today we're going to go into the aftermath. We're going to look a little bit at the Inquisition, and then our goal over the next few weeks is to look at what happened to the communities as they moved to different other places in the world. Today we'll focus on the Ottoman Empire in particular. That's the goal for today. All right? So, the expulsion from Spain, as we've talked about, was an incredibly traumatic event for the Jewish people. And in its wake, they turned to what I often refer to as magical thinking called messianism. If we can't solve the problem, it's going to come from somewhere else. Okay, the Messiah will come, all right, at this moment in time. And so it was perceived that they'd been suffering for a whole 100 years, and the expulsion is the final moment in that process. And as a result, as they understood it, the Jews are being spread out to the 4 corners of the earth. And what's one of the things that will happen before the Messiah comes? The dispersal of the people. So this is a sign that the Messiah is coming. And so everybody starts thinking in those ways. And in response, rabbis were very, very worried about people predicting the Messiah. You saw this happening over and over, and you'll see it really play out towards the end of our discussions, because what happens is you expect it to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and the people are just devastated. So they had this struggle, on the one hand, to keep the people believing in messianic times and a Messiah coming, and at the same time not to be projecting it into the moment so that it leads to a sense of despair. All right, so that was the rabbinic response to what was going on. With the expulsion now of the Jews from Spain, per se, the Inquisition redoubles its efforts to ensure that the conversos who've remained are truly adopting the Catholic faith. Okay? The influences have been removed, theoretically, and now let's redouble our efforts to make sure those who chose to convert instead of leave are really actually practicing Catholicism. The conversos themselves find themselves in a precarious situation. They're torn between their own competing identities, because they've just shifted, and there's all sorts of psychological stuff that goes with that. And they're at the same time regarded with deep suspicion by those around them, and they're under continual pressure to demonstrate to everyone around them that they're really serious and they're genuine in terms of the conversion. That they've got to prove that to people around them, and there's an ever-present threat that someone next door is going to report you. You're living with someone's going to see this and do whatever they need to do. Countless accounts testify to the harsh measures to stamp out even the slightest deviation from Catholic practice, and conversos would face continual investigation and coercion, and in many cases it resulted in death. There's a few more people who've just come in. Okay? The interrogation they would hear would have questions such as, did you light candles on Friday night? Do you wear a clean shirt or better garments on Friday? Was there smoke coming from your chimney on Friday night? Did you change the bed linens on Saturday? Was pork commonly eaten in your home? Because if you don't eat pig, then you must be a Jew in hiding. When's the last time you received holy sacraments? When did you last attend communion? And were your children circumcised? These were the kinds of things that they were looking for. So if on Friday night you were not lighting fires and there's no chimney, the smoke coming out of your chimney, you were going to be accused. All right, I have here a very long reading. I get that. I'm going to suggest, bear with me, it has value. I want you to feel the sense of unbelievable endurance people had to experience. This is the experience of the Inquisition. This is not an enlightening, this is not an invigorating reading. It is depressing, and when I'm done, I'll give you a minute to sort of process. Okay? So bear with me, read through here. I think it's called reading number 9. Yes, but, or just... No. So on Yontif, yes. Shabbat, no. On Yontif, you can transfer a flame. On Shabbat, you can't. Okay? So, Vicki, if we could give Vicki one of the copies. I know I'm making you run up and down, but I can't walk away from the mic. All right. So bear with me, this first reading, the Inquisition Chronicle. She was carried to the torture chamber and told to tell the truth when she said that she had nothing to say. She was ordered to be stripped so as to allow free play for the torturing ropes, and again admonished, but was silent. When stripped, she said, "Signors, I have done all this that is said of me, and I bear false witness against myself, for I do not want to see myself in such trouble. Please, God, I have done nothing." She was told not to bring false testimony against herself, but to tell the truth. The tying of the arms was commenced, and she said, "I have told the truth and have nothing to tell." One cord was applied to her arms and twisted, and she was admonished to tell the truth, but she said she had nothing to tell. Then she screamed and said, "I have done all they say." Told to tell in detail what it is she had done, she replied, "I've already told the truth." And then she screamed and said, "Tell me what you want, for I don't know what to say." She was told to tell what she had done, for she was tortured because she had not done so, and another turn of the cord was ordered. She cried, "Loosen me, signoras, and tell me what I have to say. I don't know what I've done. Oh Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner." Another turn was given, and she said, "Loosen me a little that I may remember what I have to tell. I don't know what I have done. I did not eat pork, for it made me sick. I have done everything. Loosen me, and I will tell the truth." Another turn of the cord was ordered. And when she said, "Loosen me, and I will tell the truth, I don't know what I have to tell. Loosen me for the sake of God. Tell me what to say. I did it, I did it, I did it. They hurt me, Senor. Loosen me, and I will tell you." She was told to tell it and said, "I don't know what I have to tell, Senor. I did it. I have nothing to tell. Oh, my arms, release me, and I will tell it." She was asked to tell what she did again and said, "I don't know. I did not eat pork because I did not wish to." She was asked why she did not wish to, and she replied, loosen me, take me from here, and I will tell you it when I am taken away. I say that I did not eat it." She was told to speak and said, and she said, "I did not eat it. I don't know why." Another turn was ordered, and she said, "Senor, I did not eat it because I did not wish to. Release me, and I will tell it." She was told to tell what she had done, contrary to our holy Catholic faith. She said, "Take me from here and tell me what I have to say. They hurt me. Oh, my arms, which she repeated many times and went on, "I don't remember. Tell me what I have to say, oh, wretched me. I will tell all this, wanted seniors. They are breaking my arms. Loosen me a little. I did everything that is said of me." This continued 16 times until the cords that they were using broke. She was then ordered to be placed on the patro, a sort of ladder with sharp-edged rungs. She said, "Signors, why will you not tell me what I have to say? Signor, put me on the ground. Have I not said that I did it all, whatever you're accusing me of?" She was told, "Tell it." She said, "I don't remember. Take me away. I did what the witnesses say." She was told to tell in detail what the witnesses said, and she said, "Signors, I've told you, I don't know for certain. I've said that I've done whatever that is they've said to me, they said of me. Signors, release me, for I don't remember it." She was told to tell it. She said, "I do not know it. Oh, they're tearing me to pieces. I have said that I did it. Let me go." and she was told to tell it. She said, Signors, it doesn't help me to say that I did it, and I have admitted that what I have done, that I have brought with me to this suffering. Senor, you know the truth. Signors, for God's sake, have mercy on me. Senor, take these things from my arms. Senor, release me. They are killing me. She was tied on the pochero with the cords. She was admonished to tell the truth, and the garrotes, am I pronouncing that word? This is one of those where I read the word. Garrote. Okay, were ordered to be tightened. Ropes tightened by twisting sticks, garrotes cut deeply into the flesh. She said, Senor, do you not see how these people are killing me? Senor, I did it. For God's sake, let me go. She was told to tell it. She said, Senor, remind me of what I do not know. Senors, have mercy on me. Let me go for God's sake. They have no pity on me. I did it. Take me from here, and I will remember what I cannot hear. She was told to tell the truth, or the cords would be tightened. She said, remind me of what I have to say, for I don't know it. I said that I did not eat it, and I only know that I did not want to eat it, and she repeated this many times. This is all about, obviously, the accusation that she didn't eat pork. That's what's going on here. She was again admonished to tell the truth. The court wanted her to confess that she consciously practiced Judaism. She said, I did it. I don't know how I did it. I did it for whatever the witnesses say, let me go. I've lost my senses and I don't know how to tell. Loosen me and I will tell the truth. She was told to declare it. She said, I don't know how to say it. I have no memory. Lord, you are witness that if I knew how to say anything else, I would say it. I know nothing more than I did and God knows it. She said many times, Signors, nothing helps me. You, Lord, hear that I tell the truth and can say no more. They are tearing out my soul. Order them to loosen me. And then she said, I did not say that I did it. I did not say that I did it. I said no more. Then she said, Signor, I did it to observe the law. She's starting to break here. She was asked, what law? She said, the law that the witnesses say. I declare it all, Signor, and don't remember what law it was. Oh, wretched was the mother who bore me. She was asked what was the law she meant, and was the law that she said that the witnesses say. This was asked repeatedly, but she was silent, and at last said that she did not know. She was told to tell the truth, or the garrots would be tightened, and she did not answer. Another turn was ordered, and she was admonished to say what law it was she broke. She said, if I knew what to say, I would say it. Oh, Senor, I don't know what I have to say. They're killing me. If they would tell me what, oh, Senors, oh, my heart. Then she asked why they wished her to tell her what she could not tell and cried repeatedly, oh, miserable me. And then she said, Lord, bear witness that they are killing me without my being able to confess. She was told that if she wished to tell the truth before the water was poured, she should do so and discharge her conscience. The water was distended by an iron prong, the nostrils were plugged, the toka, a linen funnel, was thrust down the mouth to conduct water trickling slowly from a jar. The victim strangled, gasped, and suffocated. She said that she could not speak. She admitted she was a sinner. Then the linen toka was placed in her throat, and she said, take it away, I'm strangling, I'm sick in the stomach. A jar of water was then poured down, after which she was told to tell the truth. She clamored for confession, saying she was dying. She was told that the torture would be continued till she told the truth and admonished to tell it. But though she was questioned repeatedly, she remained silent. Then the inquisitor, seeing her exhausted by the torture, ordered it to be suspended. What I walk away from this is with exhaustion and have a sense of not knowing what is it you want. I've told you the truth. I don't know what it is you want, and they're pushing, and she has nothing else to add. This specific event, I don't. But this is more a matter of, it was probably very common. Yeah, right. There is, and we're going to go into some of that a little bit. It is, but I can't tell you specifically. But I think your point is valid. Yes, sir. Or feel better about executing her. They may have executed her anyway, but at least this way they could feel better that she admitted it. Right. And in this process, they'd often implicate others as well to survive. Yes, ma'am.
It's interesting they documented everything. There's so many of these documents.
Yeah.
Like Maximus documented everything.
Well, it was documented because it's basically you've got the printing press. So you've got availability to document at this point. That is an incredible change in the way society functions. So Inquisition records reveal that most of those people who ultimately confessed and sought forgiveness did so at the site of the torture equipment. They didn't have to be tortured. You bring them into a room, you see what's going on there, and people suddenly are just saying, tell me what to say and I'll say it. All right, I'm happy to admit. I don't know what I did, but I'll admit it. Okay? By the mid-1700s, the persecution of the conversos was so thoroughly carried out that the Inquisition had to justify its own survival because no one left. And so they shifted targeted audience. They started to focus on rather witchcraft and bigamy and sacrilege and other kinds of things. They had been so thoroughly effective at getting conversos to admit whatever it is they needed to, there weren't any left, and so they just changed their target audience. The divide within Spain between the old Christians, those who were born Christian and lived their lives, and the conversos leads to a great fragmentation. The conversos who are living there, now remember, these are people who converted. These are people who converted so that they could get into society. That was one of their goals. Remember, they had been persecuted and they had no opportunity, financial opportunities, economic opportunities. And nonetheless, they then encounter discrimination in legal, in social, in religious matters, and they often excluded, despite their converting, they still are excluded from professions and social circles. And what they're facing, the conversos, is not only coming from the Christian world, it's also coming from the Jewish communities that left in exile. Because what they're thinking is the conversos are betrayers. All right, we chose to move away. They converted. All right, so they're getting pressure from the Christian world, but they're also getting pressure, not necessarily in a physical sense, but pressure from the Jewish world in addition. And as time goes by, these divergent paths of the Jews, those who move away and those who stay, leads to meaningful cultural distinctions. The people become different in the way they're behaving. The conversos have been living under Christian rule, and they adopted, as every society has ever done, they adopted the ways of the people around them. The language, the Christian customs. The exiled Jews are maintaining their Jewish practices on a much more consistent level, and so what you've got is they're all Jews, but they're moving apart. Plain and simply, they're moving apart. And whether or not it can be reconciled later is the question. Okay, so where do the Jews go? First of all, any thoughts or comments on anything so far? We'll have no sitting quietly. Again, it depends on where and when. There's official proclamations, and then there's how it plays out. But yes, in many cases, that is the case. The discrimination continues for generations, and as you'll see, people continue to leave, even though they converted. So for the next 200 years, there's continued exile that's being established. Yes, sir.
If they've already left after being converted, would they be converted back? They don't need to be converted?
So you're asking a question of that Rashi responded to because there was such debate on the issue. Is if you're a Jew, can you convert out? And the answer historically is you don't need to convert back. That if you just say, okay, I'm a Jew and embrace your Judaism, that's it. But the fact that Rashi had to offer such a solution tells you people were screaming and yelling on both sides of the equation. Someone had to step in and say, here's the rule. Okay? So where do the Jews go? Yes, Eric. I didn't hear you. Okay. Use all those dollars you spent on voice lessons. All right. So one more time because people did not hear you. Because I'm not sure what you asked either. Right. Right. Netanyahu's father. What is? Okay, right. That it's almost genetic. So what you're saying is Netanyahu's father argued that the fact is, and this, look, in his time, you're following up on Darwinism. This is a time in which this whole concept of genetic discrepancy, it's built into you. This is the arguments going on in society. So so he built on that in terms of saying that you couldn't just get rid of your Jewishness because it's in a sense the little spark of Judaism that the Hasidim talk about. It's there. It's just there. The peninsula and the Shama. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. That was some of the argument. This was, again, think about what leads to people buying Hitler's argument in Germany. This is the argument that we are all genetically different and the survival of the fittest. That's the world in which they were living. Now, much of that has been rejected in post-Holocaust, thank God. But that's the world in which they were living. That was the thinking of the world in which they were living. And so, yes, that's what he's going to say. He bought it. And if you can't give up your Judaism without, that's kind of the argument. You just are. You just are. Remember, a lot of these kinds of concepts are not necessarily good or bad, it's how they're used. Okay, so just keep that in mind. There's a lot of values that we have that can be used very negatively as well. So this is just one example of one. All right. So after being expelled from Spain in 1492, many Sephardic Jews find refuge in the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Sultan, his name Bayezid II, welcomes them because he recognizes that they're bringing skills and contributions to his society. One Jewish report describes the following. It says, the Sultan sent men ahead to welcome Jews and to spread the word through his kingdom in writing, as well as declaring that none of his officers in any of his cities dared to drive the Jews out or expel them, but all of them were to welcome the Jews cordially. Come on in, we want you. You bring economic benefit. And so as a result, Jews settle there in large number, and it's a safe place to be, especially its two largest cities, Istanbul and Salonika. You have there the reconstruction of Sephardic intellectual and communal life that begins very soon after the expulsion. So they move and they bring all the years of Sephardic knowledge and scholarship, and they bring it there, and they find an open environment where they can continue to do this, where they're welcomed. We witnessed during that time a culture marked by thriving centers of learning and intellectual pursuit. Sephardic Jews contribute significantly to the regions where they are. They bring expertise in science, in philosophy, and medicine, and it enriches the society into which they move. The larger society gains from their presence. And then you have the advent of the printing press, as I mentioned before. It proves instrumental because what happens is Jewish texts are being spread all over the place. So scholarship is more easily accessible, far more easily accessible. Meanwhile, the majority of the Iberian refugees, those who are leaving both Spain and Portugal, make their homes in the Ottoman Empire during the 16th century, and they move into what is essentially a united Sephardic diaspora with many of the cultures around them, because the commonality is the language. It's Ladino. Language is the great unifier. Just, ask my mom about this. You can't ask her now. Make sure rest in peace. Ask her about Yiddish. Yiddish equals Jewish. Right? That's what it was. We're speaking Jewish, is what she would say. Right? She didn't know all that. That's the world she knew. All right? For them, Ladinos serve the same purpose. That's the Jewish world. So Salonika, being the nearest Ottoman port that's nearest to Europe, welcomes the initial wave of Jews who come from Spain in 1492, summer of 1492. It remains a preferred destination for Jews really for about 100 years. But what has happened and why? The question is why? What has happened in the previous 40 years, you had the siege of Constantinople. All right, by the Muslims. And that had set migrations already and happened. What they were doing is throwing out Christians from Constantinople. What does that do? It means we need more people. We need more workers. We need to build a society and a structure. And since Salonika had been stripped of its native population, these new Jewish arrivals are very welcomed. They don't present the threat that the Christians did because of sheer numbers of people, okay? And as a result, they become the dominant ethnic group in the city, and they dominate the textile and trade industries, big industries for them. A majority of the Jews, this is what they were working in, and they brought with them advanced techniques from Spain and southern Italy. So they were introducing new techniques. They're bringing, again, cultures bring one to the other. They're bringing this, and so all the financial benefits, the economic benefits are there. There's land to be settled because they threw all the Christians out in the Constantinople battle. And so it's fitting everybody's needs. There are Sephardic rabbis who had been trained on the Iberian Peninsula, and they also left, okay? And so they're trying, what they're doing at this point is trying to adapt the traditions of Iberia and make them fit into the Ottoman conditions. You move into a new country, there's gonna have to be adaptation. And so they're trying to take Judaism and bring it from one to the other. At the same time, they're adjudicating the very question that came up before: what do we do with Jews who were converted and now come back? All right. What do we do? What do we do not only with them, what do we do with the new ways they've engulfed in their lives, embraced in their lives? Comments, thoughts, questions? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, say that again. The blessings? Right, but the king and queen did not wanted unity in Spain with one shepherd, as we talked about last week, one mindset, and anything else needed to go away. Right. I'm not sure I understand. You're saying Spain is just Spain, it doesn't mean anything. What does that mean? What's that? Okay, yeah, right. And they are at least they're trying to welcome Jews back, to their credit. I have a friend who just got citizenship there because he's Jewish. No, and they're not going to. Yeah, they're not going to apologize for something 500 years ago. They're simply not. As a matter of fact, I think I told you when I led a trip to Spain and we had a tour guide who kept telling us, wasn't it nice of the Jews to give us their synagogues? All right, I don't think there was an apology anywhere in there. Eric. Okay, so yeah, so what you're saying, I want to repeat it. Yeah, I'm going to repeat it. The question is, Maimonides fits into this debate as well because he fled the Almohades, which were the fundamentalist Muslims who came through Spain in the 12th century, I believe, and he fled. There's some question as to whether he was forced to convert before he left, and then he goes and he convert back? So even Maimonides, there's some question as to how this whole conversion process, how do you resolve it? What do you do with it? Right? It's self-evident is the point. But the point is, you're looking for the exact story. The answer is we don't have an exact story. We have many theories. Yeah. Yeah, I have a friend who got his citizenship that way. Yeah. Yep. So Spain is, without apologizing, sometimes the apology is just a bunch of words. They're taking active steps to try and apologize without saying the words, I apologize.
About 10 years ago, we took a trip when we were in Spain, and when we flew back, it just so happened that the person sitting next to me on the plane was a Spanish doctor, and when he realized I was Jewish, he said, Spain just hasn't been the same since the Jews who were exiled. It just took me by surprise.
It probably did affect the economy and everything else with it. Sure, they were workers. Yeah, I can't tell you how long that impact lasted, but certainly that somebody had to adapt to something. Because when your workers get up and leave, what do? What's that? Yiddish cup, right. So the Jews also were welcomed because of the fact that they were a potentially loyal population. Those who are thrown out of Spain are no longer going to be lovers of Spain and the Christian world. And so as they're brought into the Muslim world, they see them as this is a population that's going to say, yes, I'm with you. I'm loyal to you. This is a new home. All right. You want to talk, the term? Yes, sir. So the idea of atheism and agnosticism is really a non-issue in that world. Let me tell you why. For us, we think of the world as it is. The possibility is that you can be a secular Jew. You can be a secular Christian. That's modern world. That's post-Enlightenment. If you are in a society in which all the guilds, all the way the economic systems work, is by trade within groups, you better either be a Jew, you better be a Christian, or you better be a Muslim. Because if you're not one of those, there's no economic opportunity for you at all. No one will trade with you. No one will talk with you. So basically, if you in any way entertained agnostic or atheistic kinds of thoughts, you kept it to yourself because it had economic implications. The idea that there can be a secular component to religion is a post-Enlightenment new concept. Yeah, Yep, same. Spinoza is perfect, right? Exactly. All right. So, what we've got here is Jews moving into the city to fill a vacuum. We've got rabbinic input as well that's trying to make sure Jews remain Jews. You've got a blended Jewish community that had already existed. So they're not moving into a world without Jews in the Ottoman Empire. You already had people who had been settled there because they had been in their newly conquered cities. And so the result is you've got a very divided community of people coming from all over the world. It doesn't just happen. You know, think of the following. You know, my mother moved to Albany, and it's like the entire Colchian city moved to Albany. They have their own cemetery up there. That's where my mom is buried. The whole city just moved, and they stayed together when they moved to the new towns. I want to talk about the second class. It all sounds wonderful. Jews have this wonderful life in the Muslim world. It's not quite that clear. Okay? They are still regarded as dhimmis, D-H-I-M-M-I, dhimmi, which is a protected but inferior status assigned to Muslims, non-Muslims from the very beginning, from the earliest centuries of Islam. On the one hand, dhimmis are allowed to practice their own religion, meaning dhimmis, by the way, are Christians and Jews, people of the book, people who have a biblical text. Right? They're allowed to practice their religion. On the other hand, they are subjected to social, personal, and economic restrictions. They were required to pay a poll tax, what they called a J-I-Z-Y-A, jizya, and so they have to pay extra taxes. You get your regular tax, then you get your Jew tax, and then there are occasional levies put on them, and there are restrictions on what you are allowed to buy as well, and wear, and eat, etc. They were not allowed to live near a mosque. The synagogues and churches had to be modest. They couldn't stick out. No synagogues or churches were allowed to be repaired without official permission, and no new ones could be built. This idea, you know, in America where, you know, you have a split off and there's a new synagogue every third week, that's not happening, all right? Dhimmis were considered to be socially inferior to Muslims and thus were required to show deference at all times, and they could not hold any position in which a Muslim would be under their rule or under their authority. The intent is to show and to display the superiority of Muslims and Islam in general, and distinctive clothing becomes the marker in a society in which the status is so important. Muslims wear bright clothing, green and white turbans, etc. Jews are required to wear dark or black fabrics with wide sleeves and a distinctive head covering. And so you know when you walk around the streets who's who. So you might as well just put a kippah on everybody. It's the same thing. All right? We know who the Jews are, we know who the Catholics are, the Christians are, and we know who to treat as second-class citizens. Now, that's the official statement. In practice, it didn't always play that way. The Ottoman state, especially in its heyday, often ignored these anti-dhimmi restrictions, but it depended on location and it depended on time. It would wax and wane from community to community. But there was always this threat of, or understanding that, you are by nature second-class citizens. So that's what's going on from without. Now let's talk about what's going on within the Jewish community. They come from diverse origins. The first group of Sephardim arrive in 1492, the summer, and thousands come not only from Spain, but from Spanish-controlled Sicily as well. And they're soon joined by boatload after boatload that keeps coming from continual expulsions from other places in Europe. And so you have a partial explosion of Jews in the city of Naples in 1496. You have it as they're expelled from elsewhere. You have from Portugal in 1496 as well, and the Papal States in 1569. So it's not just they all move at once. There's a continual influx. And you have a threat of expulsion in Venice in 1571. More Italian Jews come walking into the community. And so what you've got is, you can imagine, even though everyone is Jewish, doesn't mean they're bringing the same customs to the table. Okay? This one's bringing Italian customs, this one's bringing Spanish customs, this one's Portuguese customs, etc. All right, it's a whole different world. People's loyalty to their practices, we all have this. We all want to keep doing what we're doing. And, I'm going to move to Phoenix. Guess what the synagogue is not going to look like? Right? And I'm going to get them all to change. Of course I will. It's going to be just like Brit Shalom. Not a chance. Okay? That's not the way it works. I'm bringing my own assumptions, and I've got to adapt to them. And so people brought these predetermined ideas of what it should be, and they're not all in agreement. And then you have a distrust, in addition, of those who are coming to Portugal from Portugal who had converted and are now coming back into that same mixed blend of people. And do we trust them? This is a mixed group of people, and you put them together. I saw a documentary on Wales, and you'll see the connection in a second. It's like, what's wrong with him? Okay? A documentary on whales, and they would bring different whales, and they brought them to SeaWorld. And you assume whales will just get along. No! They have their own pods. They know each other. You put them into SeaWorld, and they were biting each other. I don't know from what, but they clearly didn't recognize it as, quote, not family. Okay? It may be sound. It could be sound. Who knows what the distinctive measures are? But nonetheless, you can't assume just because it's one group, well, just put them all together and everything's going to go swimmingly. That's a bad joke. I didn't even realize I was saying it until it came out of my mouth. I'll share that with my brother later. All right. In addition to all this, in the midst of all this, you have the Karaites. Karaite comes from the word kara, meaning reed. These are people who believe that the Bible should be understood literally, that there's no place for rabbinic interpretation of the Bible. Take it literally. And I know I've recommended the book, The Year of Living Biblically, a number of times. It's a sociologist who tried to live life by the literal letter for a year. By the end of the year, his wife was barely talking to him. He was walking around with stones in his pocket, little stones in his pocket, and if he thought somebody was an adulterer, he'd drop a stone at their feet, because you're told to stone the adulterers. Living by the literal letter of the Bible without rabbinic is rather difficult, without rabbinic insight. But that's what the Karaites believed. All right? So you've got that mixed into everything else. And so it is an incredibly integrated society. The Portuguese Jews who come, they alone are not united. See, even when they're coming from one place, they're still diverse. Depends on how long had they been in Portugal, because again, who were the Jews who were in Portugal? Those who fled, who chose Jewish identity over conversion in Spain. These are the ones who held onto their identities. And then 5 years later, in 1497, are forced to convert, no opportunity to leave. So it's a really in your face. So now the question is, how long had they been in Portugal? When did they leave? Had they been conversos, and for how long? So even the people coming from Portugal from one location are incredibly diverse, and we're throwing them all into one little pot. All right? We're biting each other, essentially. Again, those who fled Portugal in 1496 and later had typically been raised as those who were conversos had been raised in a completely converso Christian environment, and therefore had adapted some, and they brought in Christian thinking into the Jewish community. And on top of that, few of those people who arrived in the Ottoman Empire arrived with their finances intact. That's not the way it works. So you have a sense of the mess in one community. Again, everybody trying to figure out, how do I bring what I know and what I'm comfortable with into the picture, and let's all play together. It reminds me of the formation of Israel in 1948. All right? They were not able to write a constitution. They realized if they tried, it was going to be the end of the Israeli experiment. They couldn't agree, so they just agreed to not agree. And we'll coexist. That's what you've got here. They're coexisting, but don't assume a unity of people. I can't hear you. All right, but yes, you have an element of racial mix, but you certainly do too in this time here as well. They're coming from all over the place, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Hasidim in Israel. I'm talking about those who are following Herzl. I'm talking about those who are following Achad Ha'am and his thinking about cultural centralism. These were not people, even if they're all white. Let's assume they're all white. They're not. They're not. But even if they were, they couldn't agree on what was Israel to look like. The Israel we want to build, what does it look like? We're still fighting. Look, last week, what was the ruling? The ruling at the Kotel, all right, was that only Orthodox practices is going to exist at the Kotel, even the South Wall now, and those who want to have men and women together, you've just been thrown out. 7 years in prison. Oh, lovely. You didn't hear that. All right, so that battle has not been resolved. So, and we're talking how many years later? All right, that's true here. That's no different. The same kinds of things were happening here. Don't assume that it was different. Yes, but they were also racially different. In addition, Right. So just to repeat it, so you have a cousin who married a Yemenite person, and it's referred to as a Yemenite Jew. It's referred to as a mixed marriage. I think in mid 1700s, I think Hasidim and the Mitnagdim would have referred to the same thing. Are you a Chassid or are you a traditional Orthodox Jew? And then there's an intermarriage if you get together. All right. So I think that there's a mindset that has started way back and continues to this day. Hopefully today when it's said, there's almost a sort of tongue-in-cheek humor to it. Right? An Ashkenazic Jew marries a Sephardic Jew, it's an intermarriage. Right? But there's a tongue-in-cheek nature to it. It's not really how we understand it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I lost my train of thought. Give me a second to get it back. All right, so let's talk about the patterns of settlements that happen there. Jews, as I said to you, come from different places, and what they do is they form their own kehilim, their own communities, their own kahal is a sort of a community unto itself. So they are settling in the same way as I described my mom. The Kolchiner Jews all moved together, and they stayed together. Each group found their own place. And so with that, you've got different points of view, and for the rabbinic world, these are all individual little groups. They each have their own way. We'll help them, support them through their own ways, and we'll go through each. We'll have their own rabbi, etc. It works perfectly wonderfully, we understand. So you're living in South Houston, you have this group, you're living in North Houston, you all came from a different place, we'll put you there, you're in East Houston, and we'll support all of you. The government has a different view on how this is to play out. The government of each city sees the entire Jewish population of that city as one taxable entity. I don't care what kahila you're in. I don't care how you subdivide yourselves among yourself. You as Jews, here's the amount of money you in the city are going to generate in taxes. And so Jews in each city then as a result, have to figure out how much each of their communities is going to contribute to that. And then within each community, they have to decide how much each Jew is going to contribute to the kahal's collective number. You can see how this also would turn into not a warm and friendly discussion. Anybody ever been to a synagogue board meeting where they discuss the finances? Not warm and friendly. How each person then gets assessed is determined by a combination of a couple things. Number one, self-assessment. What do I tell you I have? In other words, filling out my tax forms. Okay? Also by assessors who are either elected or appointed. And so the names of individual taxpayers are listed by households in tax registers. They're keeping, this is an official record. All right? Sherry Taxman, we charged you $30 last year. We're keeping this in record. A lot less expensive than Ashkenazic. All right? We're going to keep this in record. Everybody is put into categories. Are you upper class, are you middle class, or are you poor? And that's how you're taxed. So you submit what you think where you belong. They assess it as well. You get put into a category. But we have to generate collectively the amount of money, no matter how we divide ourselves, the total has to reach $10, okay, whatever it is, all right? And you also have, in addition, not only the taxes, but you also have the fact that there's levies being imposed. And every time there's a levy, there's a percentage that has to be generated. Each person has to provide. Okay? And so here's where it gets complicated. Sherry, I'm going to pick on you. You're in North Houston, all right? I'm picking on you. You're in North Houston. You're in the Kahal, and your Kahal has to generate $100,000. You and 3 of your friends leave North Houston and move to South Houston. What does that do to the rest of the community? Suddenly, everybody's taxes go up. It's a mess. People who left weren't embraced. Wasn't lovely. It wasn't taken lightly. It was a mess. All right. So that's how the money is coming in. Now let's talk about what the Kahal provides to its people. What are the benefits of being part of this? Each Kahal provides for almost all of the social needs of its members. They have their own schools. They have their own charity chests. They have their own burial grounds, courts of law, and libraries. So you've got 6 Jewish communities living in the city, each of them with their own structures. Okay? They elect their own official office holders, and the wealthier members are exercising a controlling influence. Why? Because they're paying for most of the social services, and they're paying most of the taxes. So they're saying, okay, guess what? First, any thoughts, questions, or insights? Eric, you always have a thought or an insight. No. That's right. That's true, too. So you've got Jews and Christians and Muslims living together. This is different from elsewhere, but that doesn't mean they're interacting, other than officially in business ways. Well, we were talking about Salonika, and primarily. Okay? And they're living together, and they're not necessarily interacting, but where are they living in general? They're trying to live, theoretically, close to where they work. You didn't take the subway. Okay? They're trying to, so in each of those communities, if you're in a field of textile, you're going to live with all the other textile people across the religions. But at the same time, what made it a little bit different for Jews knew they needed to live within walking distance of the synagogue. All right? That is, I know when my parents bought their home in New Jersey, that was a criteria. It couldn't be more than 1.25 miles. I think we lived a little over a mile away. Had to be walking distance of the synagogue. That's not an option. My parents would at times would eat all sorts of things in restaurants, but this walking thing was critical. Everybody found their way. All right? And so, if you do that, people are going to be far more concentrated as Jews in a community. Think Ireland. Okay? For males, Jewish life revolved around the synagogue. That's where all the business was done. That's where all the social stuff was going on. They didn't have a synagogue and a JCC and a federation and everything else in this world. Everything was into this Beit Knesset, this house of gathering. All right? Everything happened there for the men. Women, not required to attend synagogue. I'm not judging. You got to put it in its time. And they didn't vote in communal affairs. They enjoyed less mobility, all right, than the men. much of their social life took place in the courtyards. The homes were built around a courtyard, and for them, the courtyard was where they would gather. This is where they would do their crafts and their business. This is where they were in the company of other women and children. So for the men, the synagogue was the business place, and for the women, they would gather together and socially and even professionally in the courtyards. What's that? Right. And probably helped one another and did it in communal ways. All right, I'm going to Istanbul now. I'm not sure why, but Istanbul in particular was prone to fires. Lots of Jews moved there. The fires eventually transformed the topography of Jewish settlement in the city as well as the fortunes of its Jewish population. Most of Istanbul's Jews lived in densely occupied multifamily dwellings, like apartments, and that they rented. Between 1606 and 1698, 26 major fires occurred in this community.
Was that because it was densely populated, or?
I don't have I have to imagine that's part of it. I don't know what the other factors are, and why wasn't that true elsewhere? I don't know, but I can tell you this is how it played out there. And so Jews are being forced they've moved to Istanbul to move from one quarter, to another area, to another area. They're constantly in this relocation mode, which you can imagine, after they've all just relocated to Istanbul, is not well received and makes life all the more complicated. The most catastrophic fire occurs in 1660. It lasts almost 50 hours. 280,000 homes are destroyed and 40,000 people die. Not 1660. All right. And then, just to make it even more interesting, a plague follows up and thousands of additional deaths are recorded. The Middle Ages, and it's not just for Jews, the Middle Ages was a really difficult time. You got the Black Plague, all sorts of things that people are dying from on a regular basis. They didn't have today's science. You know, today we see a fire, and what do you see? You see helicopters out there spraying. Okay. Guess what wasn't happening? Wasn't happening. Right. So how does this period end? During the 16th century, during the 1500s, this was not only a refuge for Jews, the Ottoman Empire, it was fertile soil for new civilizations to take root. In 1560, and speaking of Salonika, we hear every Jewish man speaks his own native tongue, and each congregation appears to be in an independent city. Each of them is thriving, and by the end of the century, former identities are beginning to fade, and they're starting, after 100 years, to start to come together. Okay? They're actually finding a way not to bite the other whales. The end of the 1600s. Okay? Actually, the end of the 1500s, the 16th century. That and the binding, again, the language is the binder. That's what keeps people together. And over the 16th century, what happens is there's a decline not in the larger Muslim world of the Ottoman Empire. That starts, with the death of one of the sultans, what happens is the new sultans seem to become much more insular, care less about their people in general, take care of their own needs, and you can imagine how society responds to that. Didn't go well. The community started to decline, and with it, Jewish fortunes. In addition to that fact, the Jews who were so well integrated into the textile industry started to get competition from other places. And so they lost their in a sense, their monopoly. Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. They lost their monopoly, and as a result, they are now not only living in a world of chaos, but they're living in a world of poverty too. So this is all following up on within 100 years or 150 years of the expulsion. This is the experience of the Jews during that 150 years that comes about. Some suggest that a lot of what happened to the Jewish community during this period is also a result of Shabbatai Tzvi and the debacle around that. And I'll share more of that in the next couple of weeks. But you have Shabbatai Tzvi. Remember I talked about Messianism? Shabbatai Tzvi represents the sort of culmination of that. He declares himself to be Messiah and ultimately converts. And there's the despair. There's everything we talked about all into one. All right? But that also, sometimes it's just the straw in terms of everything else. We'll see a lot of movement to Poland and elsewhere as we go. Yes, sir. No. No. You know, there is on a theological level, there is a difference to why Christians respond one way and Muslims another. For Muslims, it's just the other. All right, we don't like Christians, we don't like Jews, we don't like this. You're another, we don't like you. In the Christian world, you always had the additional deicide charge. The deicide charge, meaning that that Jews killed our God. You always had that theological extra piece of it that for Muslims never mattered. Muslims don't care if you're Jewish, Catholic, or anything else. They just don't. You're just not us. For Christians, I mean, you even read in some of the early Christian writings, better to convert one Jew than 60,000 pagans. All right? There's clearly a focus on Jews, in particular within Christianity, because of the deicide charge that didn't necessarily exist in the Muslim world. Doesn't mean they loved us, but their reasons weren't theological. They were just other. All right. Should we play again next week? Thank you for not stoning me. That's a bad joke. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, so everybody paid a baseline tax. You paid the baseline tax plus this. Right, right. So if everybody's paying 10%, you're paying 20%.
So on their
1099s or whatever. Yeah.